Hi everybody, this is Ambit, and today we're going to take a look at Git. I'm planning to make this a series of videos. In the first video, we'll be looking at why should we even use Git. On the second video, we'll be looking at the basics of how GitHub works, and in the third video, we'll be using Git in a professional environment on an active project, so you can see how I would use it professionally. So let's just start by taking a look at what Git is as a whole. And if you go to the Git website, if you just type Git into Google, it'll take you to this page. If you try and read through this, the wording might be a little jargon heavy, it might be a little dense, so I'm just going to try and put it into simple English terms. Git is free and open source, meaning that the software itself is free, and it is open source, meaning that the code is given out to the public under a license. So that could mean, we don't provide a warranty and so on, right? But basically, anybody can use it, anybody can edit the code to their heart's content. And then it's a distributed version control system. Distributed meaning everyone has a copy of the code, and version control system meaning I'm allowed to track the versions of my code, right? So if I go make a code change, I can go look at what code was changed, and I can go look at a whole history of everything that's ever changed in my project. So how do I use Git? There's two ways that you can use Git. You can either use it through a command line interface like Git Bash on Windows, or you can use a Git GUI. When we hop into the next video, our GUI of choice will be GitHub Desktop. However, there's lots of other ones out there. I urge you to take a look. Just type into Google Git GUI and see what comes up, and go poke around and learn. So we have our command line to interact with Git, but in order to actually save the files off to a location that we won't lose them, we need some sort of hosting service, and that's where GitHub comes in. So Git is the standard, it's like the protocol that allows us to store our files and use versioning. GitHub is the website or host that is owned by Microsoft that allows us to push our files up to a server. So you can already hear one of the benefits of Git off that last explanation. We're pushing our files up to a server. So what that means is I'm working on my code for 8 hours and my hard drive crashes. Oh crap, I lost my work. No, I pushed it up to a server. Okay, my computer crashed, I buy a new one, I download my code from Git, right? So you never run into the problem where, you're in high school, you've worked on this giant essay, your computer crashes and you lose all your work, right? If your computer crashes, you have hopefully made small changes and saved them off to the server throughout the day so that way you can just pull them down. So GitHub acts kind of like a social media for code. So if we just go to kind of the homepage once you've created an account, you may not have you probably won't have a feed that looks like this, but this is mine after using it for quite a while. So over here on the left hand side we have repositories. Repositories you can just think of as a bucket that holds a project, so it holds all your code, all your assets, and all that jazz. And in the middle, you kind of see like a social media feed, right? You can see like somebody made changes to this repository. You can see someone followed one of my projects and someone followed me, right? If we go look at my profile, there's some interesting stuff here. You can see I have a little bit of a bio, my link to my LinkedIn and whatnot, and then I have some pinned repositories, and these are just ones that I'm proud of that I think everybody should take a look at if they look at my GitHub, right? One of the cool things about GitHub is it's really commonly used on a resume. It's almost it almost acts as your portfolio in a sense, right? If I'm an interviewer, I can come in and I can look at your GitHub and I can see, how much work have you done this year? I can go poke through your code and I can see, maybe how clean your code is and how much I need to train you. So, why should I use Git? Git is the most commonly used version control system, to my knowledge. That statistic might have changed since the last time I've looked. However, either way, version control systems are standard, right? No matter what company you go to, if they have a reasonably competent engineering team, they will use some sort of version control system, whether that's Git or that's Perforce or Plastic or whatever it is. The reason we're taking a look at Git today is because it's the most common and people often have questions on this, and I've been asked lots of questions, so I'm going to make a video. So, it's standard, so we should learn it, right? Why else should I learn it? Like, why does it exist in the first place? Well, we already talked about one of the reasons. You'll never lose your work. The next one is it helps work. It helps working on a team be easier. Why? Well, let's say you and I are both editing our player movement script, right? I want to let the player jump, and he wants to edit the way gravity works, right? Well, in that case, we're both kind of touching the same file, and if we both, save the file off, and I don't know, if you're working without Git, maybe you're using like Google Drive or something. I'd have to like make my changes, upload them to the Google Drive, and then he'd have to download them and figure out how to like shove his changes into there. Git kind of handles that all for you, right? So that way you don't have to manage it yourself and figure out how you cobble the files together. But also, it has some cool features. We'll talk about them more in the next video, but the one I do want to take a look at or talk about in this video is branches, and that's because branches act essentially as different timelines for the project. right? Let's say our main timeline, like we just released, version 1 of our product, and then we have to go fix some bugs, right? I, as a developer, and my friend as a developer, we can make new timelines and go fix bugs. And if I mess up my code and I break something, I'm on a completely separate timeline. My changes won't impact anything else. The last reason that I think Git is useful, and that I haven't seen talked about a lot, is it can help you with project management. It can help you track down bugs. It can help you, see how fast your people are working. It can give you a lot of useful insights. So, if Git can show you the version history, and I've just made a release, and my users say, "Oh no, I can like clip through this wall," I can go look at the history and see what has changed to see, this guy made this change. That might have been the reason why this bug exists, right? So it can help you track down things. Okay, so what are the cons of Git? Obviously, you're here because it's hard to learn. It has a learning curve, right? Git is not easy, despite what the website says. I'll argue this point. I don't think it is easy to learn. I think it's actually astoundingly difficult. If we didn't have YouTube, uh, I don't know if I would know how Git works. So, the other con of Git is it doesn't inherently work well for large projects, like it seems to say. If you're working with games, they are one of the types of large projects that doesn't work terribly great with Git. If your project is all code, and you don't really have like big assets, like I don't know, like an 8K texture file or large pictures or videos or something, Git will work fine for pretty much no matter how large your project gets. However, when you're working with files that are binary type, like a JPEG or a FBX or an OB, I don't know if OBJ counts. I'd have to look that up. Anyways, if you're working with files like that, Git doesn't know how to tell the changes between the files, so it just saves us an entire another copy of the file whenever you make a change to it. So if I'm working on an astoundingly large file that's like a gigabyte large, that's a PNG or something, I don't know, maybe it's like a 16K picture, right? If I make a change to that, I'll have two copies of that because it doesn't know how to tell what changed. So my project size can go huge. So that way, when a new developer joins and they have to download the project and they have to download all the changes that happened, the project could take forever to download, right? So I hope I've convinced you of why to use Git. It's fairly standard. Any company you go to will use some sort of version control, so you might as well at least learn one. So that way, hopefully, you can come in and you can just get to work. Or they use a different version control, but you've used at least one before, so that way you have some idea of how to get started. You'll never lose your work. It helps working on a team be easier, and it helps you track down bugs. That's going to wrap it up for today, and the next video we'll start looking at exactly how Git works and how you should use it. Thanks for looking.